In the Americas and some other places, we call this a window mat. In the United Kingdom and some other places, they call it a window mount. Either way, it has a long history in picture framing. These paperboards, made especially for framing, come in 4 quality classifications, several thicknesses, and thousands of colors and textures. Mat board can be useful for a number of picture framing applications, but their main purpose is to surround the art image in a precisely cut window. Mats provide important benefits for preservation framing, but that's a topic for another day. In this episode, we're talking about presentation, which is all about personal opinions. The frame design conversation between a customer and framer covers all aspects of the project. Everyone has opinions, and since customers' opinions are the ones that count the most, the best the framer can do is to help the customer make informed decisions about all the features of the framing, including window mats. Matting is an important part of the conversation because it's a prominent feature in the presentation, front and center in the frame, right along with the artwork. Some customers might not want to consider matting. If they think it would distract from the art or increase the price too much, maybe they just don't understand what represents value in framing. Maybe the simplest framing design would serve some customers' purposes best. But when customers consider value, what they get for what they pay, they can make better informed decisions. So if it's worth framing, if it's something they want to display on the wall and look at every day for decades, then it might be worth a few dollars more to get something they really like. Or not, it's the customer's choice, but they deserve to know and understand the framing features and benefits that might make the project more valuable to them. It's true that matting increases the size and the price of the frame, but matting provides several presentation benefits. When customers consider matting, color normally comes to mind first. So maybe the most obvious benefit of matting is color coordination. The selection of colors for mats can emphasize or de-emphasize colors in the art and help to coordinate the wall display with colors in the room. A less obvious benefit is that matting establishes what I call the visual priority of the framed display. The finished project can become a prominent focal point of the room, or it can be just an accent that blends into the surroundings. Matting gives the art a background, a surrounding to visually isolate it or to help it blend with other features of the room. These are matters of visual choice in the presentation of whatever's in the frame. The width of matting can help to coordinate size and proportion. That is, the frame can be built similar to the size or proportions of existing frames in a grouping, for instance. For another example, if a number of vacation snapshots are to be framed together, their mat windows could be arranged in several different configurations of size, shape, and proportion. The matting provides a good surface for decorative features, of course. Textured fabric coverings, V-grooves, pen lines, painted panels, fancy corner cuts, wooden fillets, and lots of other decorative features can be added to the window mat. There's no limit to the creativity and visual value of decorative mat features. I like to think of mat decoration as a sort of landscaping within the frame. Here are a couple of examples to show how different mat decorations on the same art image can change the landscape within the same frame. To show how matting can visually affect the presentation, I prepared several examples using a small, colorful image. Maybe you'll like my choices of mats and moldings, or maybe not. These choices of color and style are not offered as preferred selections, but only as visual examples to demonstrate how matting designed into the frame can affect the presentation. Let's begin with this 7 by 10 inch print in a thin gold frame. No mat, no decorative features at all, no distractions. This framed print can provide a spot of color for a hallway or a bathroom, but you probably wouldn't want to hang it over the sofa or the fireplace. This little piece probably wouldn't create much of a focal point, would it? When customers see this and decide to consider a window mat, they sometimes pick a strong color out of the art. And when they see a 4-inch wide mat sample on the design table next to it, they can see that it overpowers the art. In that case, keeping their focus on the color, the natural reaction is to reduce the mat width. But if the mat is visually overpowering, the problem usually is not the width, but the color. Strong colors may be okay for accent mats with little exposure, but in my opinion, only my opinion, the top mat should have less color intensity than the art, to focus attention to the art and not distract from it. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. It's the same image, framed with a blue mat matching a color in the art. Outside dimensions about 13 by 16 inches. This mat distracts from the art because the color is too intense, and making it narrower doesn't help. The red frame, wider than the mat, and with decorative roping, is also a distraction to my eye, but it probably would look better if it were a few inches out, away from the image. If this example looks to you like a mistake of extremes, I would agree. But someone out there might think this is beautiful, and if so, I would be pleased to build it for them. Beauty really is in the eye of the beholder. This one has a single neutral color mat that might be suitable for a room with earth tones. Outside dimensions 14 5/8 by 17 5/8 inches. Even though the mat may look fairly wide in proportion to the art, notice that your eye is drawn to the art and not distracted from it, because the neutral matte color isolates the art and attracts your view to the colorful image. Next, here's the same top matte color, a little wider, with an added second matte layer of about 1/2 inch. The frame's a bit wider too, so the outside dimensions are 17 by 20 inches. Not much contrast here, but the second matte adds not only an element of color, but another element of depth too. This presentation is a bit more decorative, and I think we're headed in the right direction. Let's keep going with a triple matte presentation using 2 accent colors that would be too strong to use for the top mat. However, these 1/4 inch exposures serve well as accents. Another accent in this example is the single debossed line with shaped corners, a secondary decorative feature, like a visual afterthought. This frame has outside dimensions of 17.5 by 20.5 inches, just 1/2 inch larger than the double matted example. But to me, the difference of size looks bigger than it really is. This next example is what some would call a gallery presentation, the sort of framing an artist might order for a juried show, where the rules might specify a plain black frame with a single white mat. Outside dimensions 17 1/4 by 20 1/4 inches. The wide white 8-ply mat adds visual depth rather than color. And here again, the double debossed rectangular lines create a subtle visual afterthought. Details, details. In this next example, the plain gold frame is accented by a matching gold fillet in the top mat window, and a second mat layer beneath it with 1/2 inch exposure. Outside dimensions 17 3/4 by 20 3/4 inches. Both mats are white, which emphasizes the visual effect of the gold fillet's depth and offset away from the image. Even though the gold frame is rather plain, I think this presentation lends a little bit of sophistication to this framing design. As we've reviewed these examples with matting, the outside dimensions grew by about 3 inches in width and height. Most of the visual differences came from the selection of materials and not from radical size differences. But all along, I believe these presentations, with that one notable exception, focus your eye to the art. When I showed you the first example, with no mat and a thin gold frame, I mentioned that you probably would not want to hang it above the fireplace or the sofa. Well, if a customer wanted to display this little artwork as a prominent focal point of the room, above the sofa or the fireplace, then we might end up with a presentation something like this. It's the same 7 by 10 inch artwork, but now we have outside dimensions 27 by 30 inches, consisting of a frame almost 3 inches wide, A double mat almost as wide as the art itself, with matching fillet, multiple pen lines in black and gold, and decorative panels of color-blended powdered pigments. This bold, oversized presentation, in my opinion, still does not distract the eye, but focuses attention to the artwork. And my goodness, what a difference in visual emphasis! Yes, maybe this would look pretty good above the fireplace. Maybe you like the colors and styles of these frame designs, or maybe not. But the point is that window matting has presentation benefits that can make a world of difference in the framed display. Picture framers often prepare framed examples, something like these, to demonstrate the presentation differences in their design galleries. Without actually seeing examples, custom framing customers might not be able to visualize all the options. But knowing about these things will help them make their best decisions and purchase framing they'll want to look at every day for many years. And after all, isn't that the real value of a framed presentation?